The robots are coming, motherfucker. Shit's getting all Skynet lately, isn't it?
AI in filmmaking, big in the news at the moment due to the SAG ongoing strikes. One of the biggest elements of it is use of AI in script writing. So all the script writers are worried that essentially, a bit like a self-checkout in Tesco's, the robots are coming for our jobs essentially. So the AI can essentially write whole scripts without the need of a human. So they're like, oh shit, our jobs are on the line.
Well, let's correct that. They potentially can.
Potentially.
Because I've seen some AI chomped out scripts and they're shit. Like, they're not good. And I've messed about with it a little bit. I'm sure the tech they're using is a lot better. And they've been dabbling with it for quite a few years now. But, you know, ChatGPT, which, to be honest, I've become obsessed with. Like, I got into it about 6 months ago. The moment I discovered it, I was like, oh shit, this is really going to change everything. And don't get me wrong, it's limited. It has editorial issues with the fact that if you put in anything that it might deem not appropriate, maybe not PC, it refuses to do it. Even if you're writing it as a story, it will editorialize based on its opinions, and it's obviously been powered to, I guess, just avoid any controversy, which makes sense, I guess, from a branding point of view, because they don't want to have any controversies and issues come up and piss off the cancel everything brigade early on when they're just trying to get the name out. People are already quite wary of AI in other areas as well. But the technology, even with its limitations, is astounding. I've tried like saying, hey, write me a script or write me a story based on this, and it comes out awful. But it's awful because of the reasons I said, where, you know, everything's very vanilla, everything's very safe. But the actual content creation on a technical level is pretty damn good. The only things that can really catch when something's been made with ChatGPT is other computer algorithms and other AI softwares. The human eye can't really catch it. It's become a big thing at universities. My girlfriend's aunt is high up in a Scottish university, and it's become literally a major issue. And quite a few people have been permanently expelled from the university on the basis of cheating using ChatGPT. So it's crazy how AI really has immersed itself into nearly every aspect of our lives overnight.
I'm going to butcher this name. Nicholas Winfield.
Oh, right.
Reeg.
Wonderful director of Drive, Only God Forgives, Neon Demon. Brilliant director.
He has been messing about with it as well. He done a whole interview talking about how he's experimented with it to like write scripts, and the AI basically turned around to him and said, you need to seek medical help, because the stuff he was putting in was like fucking messing up the algorithm and it wouldn't do what he wanted it to do.
It is quite frustrating because, to be honest, even with small things, like I was messing around, and at one point it was a prompt along the lines of a guy in a bar trying to chat a girl up, and it wouldn't even do that because it was like sexual harassment is not right. And I was like, I'm not saying sexual harassment, I'm saying chat her up, but so it's very safe at the minute.
And his whole kind of conclusion from the whole experiment was, you know, it gave him the basic material, but as you said, it wasn't fit for purpose. And all in all, you know, if you're going to be lazy and do it, you can do it, but at the end of the day, he had to change so much of it that at the moment it's not fit for purpose without an actual human touch. It doesn't give you that emotion, it doesn't give you that human element to it.
See, I don't have quite as much credibility or pedigree as old Nicholas because you know, I've never even sold a script, but I do love writing, and I love writing scripts, and I've messed around with it in my own time. And how, again, I completely agree with what he said there, but what I found really useful is using it as a tool. So for instance, I was in like an early story development of this new idea I have for a new project that's basically like sort of a horror that takes place up in the Arctic, the Thing vibes. So there's a forest fire that's going on. I found it very good for sort of instant fictional research nearly. I just basically said, write me the different government departments that are responsible for dealing with forest fires.
Right.
And it writes it out, and it instantly gave me a bunch of practical things that I can say, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. So I'll have maybe a scene with this department speaking to this department. I said, write me a 2-page diary entry that takes place over a week from the perspective of a fireman who's fighting a forest fire. And then it just gives me elements that I can draw upon, kind of like doing fictional research, you know what I mean? To then piece together and write a story or write out plot points or develop characters based on those things. Like I can draw upon that research. Kind of like, you know, if you were writing, I don't know, a world World War II thing, you do research and draw upon that to write a fictional story set in World War II. So I'm using it as a tool in that way. And in that way, I found it really useful. Also, it's sometimes, say if you're writing a piece of dialogue and I'll copy the exchange or the conversation from the script, pump it into ChatGPT, and I'll say all the same things, but word it completely differently and give me 10 examples of the whole conversation worded differently, just to sometimes change my mind up a bit. It's nearly like taste testing at that point. So there is interesting ways you can use it. And this brings us back to strike, because the writers are incredibly worried about AI and it potentially replacing them, but they're not against using it. They want to be able to use it as a tool, because it's an amazing tool for any content creator, but it is terrifying. Like, let's face it, it doesn't matter if AI technology can never truly replicate the quality or the originality that comes from real life human screenwriters. It doesn't matter if they're never as good. It's very clear that studios do not care about producing great original new film. It's a product. If they can just serve up the same thing every time with slightly different packaging and know it's going to be a hit, they'll do that happily. That's the real fear. Audiences should be terrified of this. And it's kind of fascinating that the fact that, it's talked about a lot, even when we were kids, the idea that automation becoming a real problem for all industries in the future. It's going to wipe out so many jobs. The end game of that, I guess, is we could all just live on universal credit and put our feet up and let the robots take care of everything. But there's a huge window of time in between where it's like, how do we as a population negotiate that and get to that point where in between 90% of the population might be out of work? You'd assume there's always going to be a canary in the coal mine industry that would be on the front line of that. I just never thought it'd be the entertainment industry, which is really surprising.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my job working in recruitment, we do payroll and lots of very heavy, repetitive tasks, like inputting salaries, changing salaries, about all getting automated now. Robots going to do it, feed it in. And what they don't understand, the junior staff, is they should be worried about their jobs, but they see it as less work for us. But it's not less work for you. Your job is getting taken. So that's just an example. But I never saw it in the entertainment industry. But during my research for this episode, I read a big article from the Filmmakers Alliance about how AI could help/hinder the filmmaking process. And it can basically cover every single element of the whole process, from post to pre. And it's just a madness. They have all the softwares already, Declan. Like, if we take editing, for example, color correction, VFX, stuff like that, the AI can basically do it already for you. Just feed the footage into it, and then all you have to do is check it and then maybe make slight minor amendments. It's taken away 90% of the legwork already.
Again, I've dabbled with a very basic version of this where there's certain image generation AIs you can use, and they're pretty ropey. Like, I've tried a few different ones. Some of them are better than others, but they're pretty ropey. You'll ask, give me a picture of a Chinese man riding a horse with a sword in his hand and the American flag behind him. Anything random, and it'll throw up 3 different versions of it. Sometimes it's really fascinating, wow, that is exactly what I asked for. Especially when you're more descriptive, make it a ominous atmosphere. Things like that, where it's not just a clear, draw me a horse. Sometimes it seems to really struggle with certain things and just refuse to really understand what you're saying. But it's fascinating because we're talking about AI affecting different elements, actors, extras being replaced by digital images, actors selling their rights to their image forever, scripts getting written by AI technology. But realistically, all that might be redundant in the long term, because if it gets to a point where AI can instantly create photorealistic CGI, which isn't that far off theoretically by the way things are going, and entire films can be created just with prompts, then at a certain point, essentially, you won't need a director, you won't need a writer, you won't need anyone. You won't even need to have any sort of talent. You could just write in a general prompt, tick a couple of boxes, maybe it's a bit more like a questionnaire, and create a completely original, unique film with no real people or actors in it, completely photorealistic, as long as you want, in an instant. And at that point, it would be so easy to create entire films that no one would bother hiring or paying for a director. There'd be no pathway or career path for a director to ever hone their talents. It will be lost forever. No one will bother producing a whole film, taking 2 years of development, dealing with egotistical actors, dealing with money-hungry producers, having a whole big cast and crew, spending all that money when the same thing can be done, and maybe even better, just just by typing in a couple of sentences into a computer program.
At the time of speaking, there is already whole short films on YouTube of AI generated short films. So by that I mean feeding in just text of a premise into AI and it generating everything from the characters to the locations to the plot from the text. It's already on YouTube. I've watched some of them. They're not bad, but they're not good.
I've seen one trailer where it's like a fake pizza advert.
Are you ready for best pizza of life? Bring friends down to Pepperoni Hug Spot. Our chefs make pizza with heart and special touch. Cheese, pepperoni, vegetable, and more secret things. Need delivery? Pizzas come fast. Knock knock, who's there? Pizza magic.
Very odd, like very weird. And sometimes the images sometimes the people look photorealistic and fine, and then sometimes like a mouth is morphing into an ear and stuff.
The people look like as in people, but they look like kind of like very badly done video game characters where they're like, hello, just like moving about.
Yeah.
And it's not enjoyable. And what you said about that whole process, it just takes away the magic of films for me. I'm going to use one of my favourite films as an example, Birdman. The whole time I just was sitting there thinking, not having read about the film or anything, looking at it thinking, oh, this is one continuous track and dolly shot going along, like all those little elements of the filmmaking that you're just sucking the soul out of it. You're just really
You never get a David Lynch.
No.
But here's a weird thought. What about also just different versions of existing film? Like you say, show me the Lord of the Rings, but Frodo never gets involved. And you just watch the whole film play out differently, the whole story play out differently. You say, give me a 10-hour version of Apocalypse Now, and it ends up but all the same plot points, but give me an extra 10 hours of footage of what happened in between those points that we see, and you see a lot more of them just hanging out on the boat, or some boring scenes of he goes for a shit before he goes to do an actual important plot point that we did see in the movie. You could really theoretically go and do everything John Wick, but instead cast James Stewart when he was aged 30 in the main character's role. You could essentially possibly do anything. This is assuming, I'm sure there'll be copyright rules on that, but it will become a bit like, do you remember that awful video game for your computer back in the day where you could sort of make your own movie?
Yes, I do.
That will become the new movies. People will make their own movies that they want to see just based on a whim. Like, imagine you're recommending a film to someone that you've seen, but you don't like a certain element of it, so you get them to change it before you show it to them.
Yeah, give me a version of Saving Private Ryan where it's from the Germans' point of view, so you're seeing them inside the machine gun boxes loading the bullets, and just the possibilities are endless, really.
And as much as you'd lose the charm, but it also opens up the world in a way, people that wouldn't ever have the opportunities. Maybe the best film director of the last century, maybe the best film director that ever could exist, was born in the Congo and was destined just to work in a mine and had their arms chopped off, or died of malaria. Maybe they were born as an uncontacted tribe and never even knew that filmmaking existed, but if they'd been born in the right circumstances, they could have been the greatest filmmaker of all time. It will completely open up the world, and what makes a good film director will be entirely different now. It will be about who happens to word things in the best way to write the right prompt for the AI technology.
We've run specials on the best films never made. Make Sergio Leone's Leningrad of how it would have been based on his script using AI. We could potentially have all of that.
Here's the thing, we're projecting the fact that it will lose the charm and it won't have the same magic, but we're just predicting that. Like, what about when it's so good that it can watch Leone's old films, watch people talking about them and why they liked them, have all that input, and it really feels like a Leone film?
Wow, it's just mind-boggling, isn't it?
Like, what if it truly can completely replicate genuine talent and human creativity?
Wow, it's crazy, man.
It might absolutely make everything redundant.
It's just mad, man.
It's terrifying.
I mean, like, reading up on it, there was a couple of elements we discussed already that it can control the whole process, but there was certain elements that piqued my curiosity more than others. Like, to be fair, I wasn't too impressed with the kind of post stuff because it's done by computer anyway. It was more of like the pre-elements of making films, so like the casting is the one that really caught my attention, because essentially you can feed a script in and this AI software will be like analysing it. We think the actor will make the most money based on the script that you fed in is Brad Pitt, Liam Neeson. Like, do you know what I mean? So it gives that element to the casting director where they'll be like, yeah, I like these names. I think Brad Pitt would be a good thing. So it takes away the whole legwork there again, Declan, and also location scouting. Well, for this, as you said,
plug into Google Images.
Yeah, as you said with your Arctic thing, if you didn't set on the Arctic before, I've got this plot, where do you think would be best for it to be based? it's, we think the Arctic, or we think a forest in Minnesota or something like that. It's fucking madness. Like,
also flip it, put it from the actor's perspective. Like we talked about how Kurt Russell, his real superpower is picking roles. Like when has the guy ever not picked a good role? Even if the film doesn't do well, it's usually a really good film. He's amazing at that. A lot of actors are awful at it. John Travolta, awful at picking roles, notorious for it. Even when Pulp Fiction revived his career, he just immediately went and ruined it again. But if you're an actor and you can go into a program and it finds you the right script and the right director who's gonna be perfect for your kind of acting and why people like you, that completely changed the game for actors.
AI is giving me this script. I think you'd be perfect. Martin Scorsese, do you know what I mean? So what AI can also do is gauge audience reaction. So like, we've got this premise. Do you think this is any good? Will this make money? It's all efficiency, but also the other big elephant in the room, can this make us money? So
now let me ask you though, what are they basing that on? Is that like the pitch of a film or the look of a film?
Everything.
But people are dumb. They don't know what they want until the film's actually finished.
It's kind of like an essentially glorified market research tool. Look, we're working on this film. Here's a basic plot. Do you like the plot? Do you think you would watch that? Do you think you'd watch that with this actor in it? And then it can do all that. So essentially, if they're saying this is shit, we can go back and change it all and then keep going back until the audience are like, yes, that would be good. Therefore, Declan, they're not carrying through with a project that essentially might bomb. Do you know?
That'd be infuriating as well, because like market research is always an awful idea. Like getting audience approval ratings and basing stuff on that is always a terrible idea. So hopefully it can improve on that.
To be fair, I like stuff that comes out and bombs, and then later on, after like many years or like rewatching it, you're like, that actually was good. It wasn't just right for that time. Do you know?
Yeah, it's wonderful when a film does get cult status and does get the love it deserves, but I hate when a good film bombs because it just makes it harder for another good film to get funding. Or when an unusual film bombs or a misunderstood film bombs and gets bad reception. It's terrible for the film industry in general from a creative standpoint. You were talking about using AI to decide what film to make. Netflix actually kind of did this back in the day when they did their first original House of Cards. They actually used an algorithm to work out based on trends what they should do a show about and what people had an appetite for at the time, and it came up with a cynical political thriller. They used that as the basis to end up making House of Cards. You know, studios have probably been using predictive AI technology in various ways for a long time, or at least trying to use it, trying to find a way to use it, but only now is it actually becoming powerful enough to really work. Speaking of Netflix, you know, Netflix brought out the recent series of Black Mirror. I only seen 2 episodes. Personally, I hate it. It's awful.
Yeah.
But the first episode that I did watch is all about the fact of actors selling their likeness, or in contracts having their likeness taken and used against their will forever in various ways. So they can basically, it looks like Brad Pitt is walking over and taking a shit or slapping a woman, and Brad Pitt says, hey, I didn't shoot that. I don't want to be seen doing that sort of thing. But he has no right to his likeness anymore because he sold it off in a contract. And this is essentially the whole issue with the actor strikes at the moment.
So you're talking about like Deepfake kind of thing?
Yeah, essentially.
Because creators of South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, basically funded a studio that they're going to do a lot of work on deepfakes on. So they've got like a Donald Trump one in the works and stuff like that. They're going to use AI to create deepfake whole films about deepfakes and like comic films about Donald Trump.
That would be amazing.
Donald Trump gets fucking indicted, loses all his money and becomes a normal person, like going to the supermarket and navigating life and shit like that. So,
but here's the problem with that. Morally, when does it become wrong? Because it's obviously not against the law to parody someone. You know, if Alec Baldwin dresses up like Donald Trump on SNL, no one's going to have a problem with it, unless you know, well, you might have a problem with it, but it's not morally wrong, and certainly no one's going to mistake him for it. And let's say you're a Donald Trump lookalike, an impressionist, and you really do look like him. Still, you probably know it's not him. But when you've got technology to make photorealistic false representations of what a person may or may not have been doing, like imagine someone created footage of you absolutely like you, showing you doing things you didn't do, and no one can, not even yourself, can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't seem right. That seems awful. Deep faking technology, you don't need to be some genius guy with a £100,000 computer to do that. People just do that and throw it up on YouTube, like for fun, when they don't even have a proper YouTube channel. Like it's very easy to do now, and it's become a big issue already in porn. Like I remember a few months ago, I came across, it just said Margot Robbie porn scene, and I was like, what? And I clicked on it, and it was Margot Robbie
in a Pausing.
having sex, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I realized it was a deepfake, and that's now banned from Pornhub, and you can't find it. You can't find deepfake porn.
Please send me a link.
Please
You
send
can't
a link.
find it
Anywhere legit. But it literally, like, actresses and famous people are being photorealistically incorporated into porn scenes, and it's a weird thing where I don't know how you'd feel about that, because on one hand, you know that's not you, but when it's completely photorealistic, does it make it doesn't really make a difference. You'd still feel violated, wouldn't you?
But imagine you're like the daughter or the son of one of these people, and you go into school, and then everyone's sending round a link of that, like,
Yeah.
that'd be fucked up, man.
Because it's not real. But does it matter at that point when it's that realistic?
I guess what we're getting at, this whole AI conversation, there's so many like grey areas. Taking people's jobs is one thing. Making stuff up of a likeness of that they might not, it is just another level. Like
It is completely wrong. Like, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's also another weird thing where automated driving is coming. Like, automated cars already exist. In certain states, they're already talking about never allowing companies to use automated driving cars for, say, driving trucks around, because you'd overnight be saying goodbye to millions of people's jobs.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, people were criticising it, saying we're standing in the way of the future, standing in the way of adaptation. But at the same time, I kind of agree, because at the end of the day, why should we all give the green light to a technology start being used that only benefits the rich people that own those companies and is going to fuck over everyone? Like, driving is the number one job that if you don't have a good education or you're not smart, I'm not saying drivers aren't smart, but you can do that job if you don't have an education, as long as you know how to drive. Why are we all going to just agree to fuck ourselves in the interim?
The AI stuff being used now isn't perfect and still requires a human element to it to double check it and everything like that. So it's still needed, but the rate that it's improving, there's going to come a point where it is going to be perfect and no human is needed.
And at what point do you just create an AI to do the checking? It's never ending, really, once you go down the rabbit hole.
And if we're talking about this in the premise of a film subject, have these men not seen Terminator?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we've already discussed this. Like,
Well, apparently Elon Musk has, because he's been one of the, or at least the most famous figure who's been constantly giving public warnings about this.
It's really all about laying the groundwork to make sure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully.
He actually has created, I don't think it's a company, I think it's an initiative or maybe even a non-profit charity sort of organization, trying to basically control the narrative and make people aware and approach government and basically just get regulation going. Because his insinuation is you can't try and let this thing happen, then start regulating it and try and control it. When the horse is bolted, we're fucked. Like, he really is believing the whole Skynet, AI taking over the world thing. He genuinely is from that point of view. Obviously, that'd be a while off. But even just from a economic standpoint in the short term, like, we can't just let the world be fucked. Like, and also forget even like the economic aspect of it, because we need driving jobs for the economy to
yeah.
Technically, filmmaking isn't a necessary thing. It's not. It's creative. It's art. It's not necessary. But we should still, just for our own sake, look to maintain that, because, like, I don't want to live in a world where films are made by AI technology. Even if I never get to be involved in the film industry, I don't want anyone else to not be able to. I want someone to have a dream of writing films or shooting films or editing films or acting in films and one day get to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live in a world where AI does everything.
We're such film fans that we're not seeing filmmaking as just the final element where you go to the cinema and watch it. We break down every element of it, from the writing to the post-production. Having done that ourselves in media or whatever we've done, we've experienced that. The skill, the actual skill and the art of making film. I'm one of those huge fans of low budget kind of indie films. I fucking love them, and like, the whole AI would just eliminate all of that. Some of those low budget films are fucking excellent. Like, do you know what I mean? I'd be worried about them.
Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe they'd say, pump me out a low budget film that feels like it was made for no money.
Yeah.
The AI might even incorporate every now and then the sound editing's not very good, or there's a couple of moments where you can see the camera guy in the reflection of a glass as you're walking past on purpose. purpose to create that element. But I know what you mean. It's that thing where even if the AI could consistently produce way better films every year, I'd rather have the worst films from real people.
We've talked about a lot of the negatives of it, but on the plus side, this might give the whole filmmaking a bit of a kick up the arse of we keep recycling stuff for the masses. Like, we need to be worried about this AI and we need to do more original stuff. We need to think more out of the box to combat this threat. So it might be good for us as the fucking film goers and fans of not seeing the same recycled remakes, Disney remakes constantly. Here's a new original premise. This is what we done. We've got together to fight the threat, and here's some great original stuff to revitalize film.
That is also what the scriptwriters and the actors unions are saying. They want to use it as a tool. And for actors, they don't necessarily have a problem with their likeness being able to get replicated as long as they have control of it. If you can license your likeness to, say, certain sponsorship, like in Friends, Japan wants to sell a new lipstick for men. So rather than Brad Pitt having to fly over and actually shoot it, you know, his agent gives him a call, say, hey, they want to do this, blah, blah, blah. A 30-second ad, you license your likeness to the ad. You see what the final ad looks like with you doing a bunch of stuff endorsing this product that you never really did or never really filmed, and give the green light, or maybe say, tweak this, I don't like the way I say that, that's a bit goofy, maybe even pull the plug on it altogether. But either way, you have control over your likeness, your appearance, your brand essentially, but you never have to do any of the legwork. Actors will love that. But it's the lack of control and the potentially, and that's what these studios are trying to get in early when people aren't aware of it, and sign this into contracts. As long as it gets used as tools that is for our betterment across whatever industry or aspect of our lives, I'm down for it. But we gotta be on this shit, because it's very possible and probably likely that most of these technologies are just going to get used to make the already really rich people much, much richer, and make the lives of everyday Joes like you and me way harder.
Yeah, if it's used as a tool for good, we're all for it. But if it's used as a tool of people losing their jobs, losing their livelihood, losing everything they've worked for however many years, gone to college, started off as a runner making tea, worked their way up through the industry to be where they are, for AI to just turn around and go, you're sacked, I'm not for it. I'm 100% not for it.
And that's before we even get to a Skynet scenario.
Well, I'm happy that the old Elon's seen it, because he is a person of influence, and he has bare money, and hopefully he can build up some sort of robots to kill the bad robots. I'm
a big fan of a lot of the stuff he does, but he's gone a bit wacky lately, and he's unnecessarily divisive at times. Well, he's become, divisive with a lot of people.
On purpose,
he's maybe not the best ambassador for it right now, but he's the only one. He's the only really famous one out there. So
it's like the Dark Knight. He's the hero. He's not the hero we need right now. He's the hero we have. You know, we'll watch this space, Declan. I'm fully behind the American filmmakers strike. I think they got 100%. Very, very valid point. The rate that the AI technology is improving is frankly mind-blowing. It's a worry. It's a worry.
Will it be Terminator or will it be iRobot?
We shall see.
We shall see.
If humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully.